another episode of the Dr. Supercoach podcast. You are joined this week by JB, and we are powered, as per usual, by Code Sports. And I've got Pistol on with me, and this is like a reunion of sorts, I guess. I don't know. I haven't been on with you all year, have I?
No, this is literally the first time we are podcasting together since a patron-only podcast in January. No, February. That's a long time.
That is a long time. I mean, we're in July now, so yeah, it's a very long time. Well, how have you been? Well, how's the family? How's the life? How are your cats? I'd love to know about them.
All that. Why did you say that so sarcastically? They are absolutely the loves of my life at the moment. Well, at the moment.
That wasn't sarcastic. No, my voice is still recovering from I had a big Saturday night. I don't know if you heard about it. We ran a little event.
Tell me about it. What did you do on Saturday?
We ran a little event for our little Patreons, Slackers type deal. And then, I'm responsible. So essentially, I was trying to just be the sober one, trying to make sure everyone was having a good time. And I kept on, I was asking the bartender for waters, and she kept serving me like stuff that looked like water, but it was like highly alcoholic. And then it took me till I finished drinking it to realize, oh no, that was alcoholic. And it happened about 12 or 15 or 20 times. So, I'm recovering from that essentially.
It sounds, you're very brave.
An innocent Saturday night that turned into, I was a bit of a victim of peer pressure, essentially is what happened. It's a victim story.
It sounds like it. No, the Slack catch-up was unbelievable. There was so many people there, which was awesome. This was by far our biggest turnout. I think we peaked at close to 70-odd people.
Yeah.
Throughout I think it peaked around 2 to 3 or something like that. And then we literally made it to midnight before most people dispersed, even a bit longer, but most people had dispersed by then. But it was just a great day and night hanging out with people that we spend a lot of time talking to online and meeting them in person. Everyone was just so wonderful and great. I had so many good conversations with people that, even people flew in from interstate and drove really long distances to be there and meet everyone. It just felt like old friends chatting and catching up. It was honestly, the Slack catch-up, JB, is like probably in my top couple of favorite days of the entire year.
Yeah, I mean, it's that and, I don't know, Christmas, my birthday. There are a few things, I guess.
Your birthday's in my top 3 too.
Oh, no, I was naming your top 3. Yeah, I don't really enjoy
Christmas is a rough one, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Got you loud and clear there. It was really, really good. Company was amazing. I want to say like people who other people would have heard of. It was pretty much just Supercoach with DR as like the other famous guy who was attending. He's the loveliest person in the world. I don't know if anyone listens to his content, but shout out that guy because he's the best dude. No, as in like people that listen to us. I don't know if they also go and listen to his weekly content as well. But if you don't, you really should. Yeah, he is just the nicest dude in the entire world. Maybe too nice. He may be a little bit uncomfortable with how nice he was being. I was like, can you just like punch me in the stomach on your way out or something? Like, he was incredible. Everyone was incredible. The Slackers, the Bells Hotel, 3rd year straight they've put us up. And I keep telling them I'll shout them out on the podcast and then not podcasting and no one else does it because you guys obviously are really rude. But they put on an amazing show for us as well every single year. So shout out to them. They're the best. And besides that, it is just probably, like you said, if not the most enjoyable day in my calendar, it's definitely the most enjoyable football-related day in my calendar until Port Adelaide ever win a final again. So those two things would probably be up there.
I think one of the highlights for me of the event was finding out that I was Theon's girlfriend's favorite podcaster. And then he just said it was because I was very logical. And then I said to him, well, you're not saying your favorite podcaster, so I'm clearly not your favorite podcaster as well. So no shout out to him. But nonetheless, it's hard to be everyone's favorite. Again, speaking on your behalf, JB. But thanks
I find it hard to be
for
anyone's
everyone.
favourite, so no, I can't relate.
No, JB's the life of the party every year. So if you haven't been before and you're part of the Slack, it's just such a great time to meet everybody. Everyone gets along like a house on fire. You all got common interests. It's just a fun, great day. So if you haven't been before, there was probably like 20 new faces. Come on down. I hope everyone that came this year comes next year, and it just gets larger and larger.
Yeah, it really is the best. Having said that, we're going to move on to the other thing that we are really passionate about. Cancer Council. I think we're approaching, how far away are we from our next milestone? Because this continues to leave me in awe as to how generous people are with this.
So we've passed our milestone, and I wasn't on that podcast. It was actually the reverse podcasters, Pig and Cheezo, were on the podcast where we passed the 30,000 mark. So I never got to do a big thank you spiel, but I will say very much a big, huge shout out to everybody that's helped donate along the way. And it's just like so incredible for the Cancer Council. And we're truly in awe of, being able to raise this amount as a community. It's something that I will hold incredibly dear for the rest of my life. And it's truly unbelievable. And we have 4 more donations this week, JB. So it doesn't stop.
Jeez.
We don't hit 30,000 stop. We go 30,000, and then I just change the target to like 35 or 40, and then we complain that we haven't hit that mark until we hit that mark.
It used to be what? What did we start at? What was it? 1,000 or 2,000? We started at.
No, I think
what
we
is something
started
we
at
can
10.
realistically get to eventually? No. We would definitely no. I don't think we realistically thought we'd ever get 10. I think it must have been like 4 or 5, and then we're like, okay, what's next? I think it started heaps lower, but yeah. Anyway,
so long ago. We're talking
crazy,
many years.
Eons.
SuperCoach had like 24 trades.
Decades.
No, not 20 trades, just 24. All right. First up, we have Matt Panner. He says, hello from a past patron. My back to uni days are gone, so I'll be resubscribing soon. But in the meantime, Heaney gone Fisher, 3 trades left, and I'm only willing to spend 1. Fisher to more. Preemptive donation because the points I could trade in aren't worth it. I'm copying the Heaney donut. Thanks for another great season so far, guys. Congrats on hitting the target. Thank you very much, Matt. Awesome. Please come back. Subscribe. Be great to see you. CJ's donated. What a legend. Sexton, you absolute potato. That feels a bit harsh, Sexton. Logan Costa says 6 outs and only 2 trades. That's a lot of outs, Logan, but thank you very much for your generous donation. And last but not least, Brad, still donut free this year, but completely stuffed my loopholes. I had Graham's 2 on the field while having 2 bench players ton up that I couldn't loop on. That is a disaster.
Is that what, Dowling and Humphrey, maybe? Yeah.
Could have been anyone.
Oh,
Who
gosh.
knows?
Well,
not anyone.
Was those 2, yeah.
Probably. Likely was.
They're the pretty popular ones that could have done it this week. Well, okay. Well, I can't actually remember how this whole podcasting thing goes, so I'm trying to train myself on the run. I'm also trying to hold my voice up so it doesn't go out again because I can feel it struggling already. Is this the part where we talk about our season or our week that we've just had?
It's been that long for you. You know, I don't know if
I'd love to talk about
how
mine,
you're going.
But yeah,
I want to know. How are you going? Tell me.
Well, I had an okay week this week. I've been very consistently in the same spot for almost the entire year.
Oh my God, I'm potting with Pig again.
Is that how he's... Well, I mean, my same spot's not
every single week
15k though, so... no, I scored 23.35 this week. Ranked 3,316. I went up 350 spots this week. I think I went up 2 or 3k last week. So I do lie. I've been, up and down, but predominantly within the top 5k. I'm waiting for it to all to come to an end though, because I do have exactly 0 trades and there's like 6 weeks left. So it's all going to come crashing down eventually. But I've really enjoyed the year, to be honest. I've had a fun sort of SuperCoach year in general. I just know that it's not going to be fun for the remaining section of it.
All right. I got to ask. Well, firstly, I got to say, I did not run out of trades first this year out of all of us on the podcast. So thank you very much for that joke for the last decade. It's been great and hilarious, but no more. We've done now. JB is the new
No, this is an outlier. I don't think that means you can... just palm off the entire decade of.
We had 40 and you
sourcing
finished
through
it
your
before me. That's crazy. And I only had like 3 left after round 5.
It was someone
all right,
told me
so-
it was a race, so I think I must have won something.
So now, JB, I want
Yeah.
to know a bit about your season. I know you started really, really hot.
That is true.
Your team was incredible. So what kind of happened in the middle part of the season? What sort of lessons, I guess, did you learn? And how do you think you're going to use them, I guess, going forward?
Oh, this is how you podcast when there's nothing to talk about. Right, got you. Now I'm following. So I did start well. That is true. Let me see what I was what I peaked at in rank. My overall position, I was in the top 1K at some point this year. So that was round 5. And then from that point onwards, I ballooned out to 8.5K, sat there for a few weeks, and then have steadily come back down. So what actually happened? I'm getting there. So what happened in that mid part is I think we had. I don't want this to sound like I'm sort of deferring from my ability, because I made bad trades. Like you can make bad trades and it can put you in a bad position. I did a bit of that for sure. No more than a usual season though. I actually feel like this year more than any, the players who started well and had the excess funds to trade in the good players were really exposed to the fact that the good players just don't really exist anymore. Not in the traditional sense where they're like consistent. You can stay priced out of a player if you miss out on them in a certain week and not be able to get them in for the season. I don't think those players have existed this year outside of maybe 2 or 3. Like Flanders has the ton run at the moment, but even he's getting low tons and staying semi-affordable. I don't think there's a single player where if you didn't start them, you haven't been able to get them cheap. Maybe Bon. I'm trying to see what his lowest price got to. 614K for the year he got to. So yeah, he's probably the one player where you're like, if I didn't start him, I didn't get him cheap at any point. Besides that, like even your Dacoses, your Butters, he dropped. LDU dropped big time. Dunkley's come back up, but he dropped really low. Rosie, we know how low he got. In terms of the really good players, like Gorn, I suppose you could consider as well, but even he's dropping now. English dropped heaps. He hasn't even gone back up, really. There aren't players I can think of that have stayed up. So if you started really well and traded in, like this is one of my bad ones, Petrarca at 630, thinking he's going to go on a run to get to 680 and stay, that just did not happen. And you got so heavily punished for that. The players who started off worse and had to sort of not penny pinch in the sense of getting non-premiums and getting guys who are 200, 300K cheaper, but to just pick off the guys that were around 5 to 550 who we thought that's going to be a worse premium than who I'm getting, it just didn't exist really. Like your Tom Greens, we thought, 600K, yep. He dropped another 150K on below that after we got him in. Petrarca dropped heaps after I got him in personally. There were so many players. Like if you got Jack Steele in around 600, Dawson around 600, like how many players, more than any I can ever remember, have dropped? And I'm wondering if this is the new SuperCoach where we're just not going to get players be consistent outside of your 1 or 2 best players for the season. And that my lesson has really been, don't get the 600K plus guys, whether you're doing poorly, whether you're creating your starting team, whether you're doing really well. You just don't need to desperately get them outside of 1 or 2 guys that you identify as they've done it for this many years and they're doing it again this year. And I mean, we probably just start those guys, to be honest. But if you don't, outside of those guys, there's really no one worth spending money on. Sarong, I would have told you after 5 or 6 rounds, you have to get this guy at 630K. He's now 530K.
Yeah.
He got to 590K off his buy. Like that's still really cheap for someone who was averaging at that point over 120 points per game. So even those guys, they were just affordable at some stage. And I could be wrong on this, but I don't remember this ever happening where you can't trust the premium to go on a ton run for a month, let alone for a season. It is just not happening in the game at this stage.
It has been. I think that this has happened more than any other year. I know people probably listening saying, "Yeah, it happens every year," and you're right. It does happen every year to some players, but I don't think to this extent, amount of players that it's happened to before. But I think what ends up happening because of that is a lot of us fall for a price bias in that when a player gets to a certain price, we won't look at them because they're that price. So like Dunkley falling to like 560 a couple of weeks ago. We're like, well, he's not that good. He's 560k, he's not that good. So we're not just going to get him. And he's looking now like, a clear top 8 midfielder. And if you had asked us 2 weeks into the season, what was your top 8 midfielder, I think all of us probably had Dunkley there. So we probably always thought Dunkley was a top 8 midfielder, but because his price had dipped, we're like, maybe he's not that good. And obviously your price dips because you have a bad game or two good games. So it is very reactive to a bad score. But I think this year, especially, we've had a lot of players that became really good value, LDU in particular, where I'm like, LDU's not that good. But LDU is good. And Lockie Neal as well at times. I'm like, okay, he's old.
Yeah, I was really bad for that one. Yeah, because you thought that one game meant the world to you at that point. He's missed a game. He could miss 5 more games for the rest of the year. Like, all of a sudden, I thought Neal was injury prone just to activate my own bias on a guy who'd had like 2 or 3 bad weeks prior. It's just not true. It was so far from the truth.
And he was cheap. And there's so many more cases where it's 1 or 2 games. But I mean, it's very hard to tell yourself, okay, they're cheap, but they're going to rebound and be really good for the season, versus they're cheap because they're going to be bad for the rest of the season. English came down in price and people were like, okay, I have to buy English now because this is the cheapest he's going to get. But then he continued to be quite poor. And it's been very difficult to differentiate between those type of players and the ones that rebound. And I'm not sure, to be honest, JB, exactly of how you decide outside of looking at the future draw, looking at who they've played before and seeing if they were particularly hard matchups and taking into account, what we've known about them in the past.
Do we think this is, or not we, do you think this is a result of, everyone's saying the tag is back, there's so many more taggers this year.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been as prominent as what people are making it sound. Like, I think they pointed out at the start of the game, but then they don't really track whether it, it stays on that player or not. And sometimes it can just be for the first quarter and then it drops. But it definitely has been around more than at least the last 2 years. Is that the factor? Or is it just that this next crop isn't your Joel Selwoods, your Gary Abletts, your Scott Pendleburys in their prime, even the Swans and the Beams of the world, Rockcliffe, like this new crop just isn't that level? What are we really attributing this to?
That's a good point. I hadn't really considered it. And I probably would have started to consider it when Lockie Neal wins his 3rd Brownlow medal, and just think maybe these old guys are much better than the younger guys.
Yeah, the new crop.
It's possible. I've honestly never thought about it in that way. I thought maybe the defenders were scoring a lot more heavily early days this season, and maybe that impacted the amount of points up for grabs for the midfielders. But the defenders have really fallen off a cliff, I guess, in the last couple of weeks, or it seems that way, maybe because Luke Ryan's fallen off a cliff. So perhaps that may have been a thing, that defenders were taking more points from the midfielders. But I don't really know what the reason is, except I know moving forward, I think we're going to just have to really take value where it occurs and probably ignore. Like, honestly, if it's a 600k player, we just say, you know what? Too bad. I'm going to get somebody who's 550 instead. And when I do that 4 times throughout the season, I've saved 200 grand, and now I can afford a premium, which could be a Connor Rosie on your bench. And that lets you just have a better team overall and lets you get to a fully premium team faster. And then you can make your adjustments after that period when things are a little bit more settled. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson this year. And that's how I tried to play the game and has helped in my rapid rise of getting in the lower premiums. But as soon as I started to do really well, because I was flying, I just went back into an old habit of like, well, I don't have this top end player and I only have 3 spots left in my side, so I need to make sure I get Luke Ryan, and I need to make sure I get Raul, because I think he's expensive and good. And I filled out my team with 3 of my last 4 players outside of Rosie were top price, and all of them are flops. So if I'd stuck with the Gouldens and I stuck with the Dunkleys and I stuck with the Rosies, I would be in a way, way stronger position and have more trades.
Yeah, so you and I kind of did the same thing. So I started my starting team. I was really focused on value and not starting the big 620k plus guys, because I thought I could get more value out of the 550 to 600k guys. I'm talking about midfield pricing, but adjust that per line. Like the Houston, who was much cheaper than the Sicilies and the Stewarts and such. So I did that with my starting team, and it started really well.
And I didn't.
And then and you did it mid-year, and like because you were going really well, and then we both pivoted to, now that we're in this good position because of what we've done, we're going to do the opposite to what made sense like literally 3 weeks ago. So it's really strange. As soon as you get in like a good position, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna keep everyone below me by getting in the big guys. And that is what ends up hurting you the most. And it's so wild. We're only going to have 5 guys, I predict from here, that are going to average 120 plus. I don't know if that's more or less than usual. One of them being a ruckman, which you generally get, and then the others being midfielders, and you've got Heaney in there. So 3 midfielders, 1 ruckman, and Isaac Heaney, who's going to be a midfielder only next year. Usually, like prior to the year starting, I would have said Butters definitely, and he is in there. I would have said Gorn would be my prediction. Bontempelli. Those 3, I'm like, yeah, everyone's sort of predicting them in there. You've got Neil and Heaney in there, which are sort of outside the blocks types players where you're just like, okay, cool, yep, they've got in there. Awesome, big season from them. And then it's like, you could have argued Sarong, Dacos, Merritt, who was the other big one? Tom Green. I was arguing preseason could definitely get in there. LDU. I was like, how does he not go 120 after he just put out 2 months of 130? Tim English, obviously. Like, there are so many guys where I'm like, they're not even close. Is it usually around 4 to 5 players going 120? And I say 5 because I'm not counting Luke Ryan. I think he drops below it. He's pretty much on the dot at the moment. He's got 6 weeks to drop below it. I think he does do that.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, I think, say that's 5 guys. And one of them we all started as a ruck. The other one's like, I don't know. Is that less than usual, do you think? It feels like a very small amount.
I think it's relatively similar. I don't think there was too many that went above 120. But the volatility has been pretty crazy, I think, this season. I was going to ask, though, because our years really did go in opposite directions. You mentioned round 5, you were top 1K. How many cumulative points were you on at that stage?
All right,
I'm asking
find my way
specifically because I was 30K at round 5. And I had come from my starting team. I picked quite top heavy. Like I picked, as Tom Stewart. I'm thinking of the kind of more unique, expensive players. I started with Liberatore. I started with Dawson. So I didn't take pretty much any of the underpriced premiums and paid up for it. And it was a terrible start. And then I obviously got forced into value to try and save the season. But I think I was like 600 points behind you or something during the buy rounds where you can't actually...
10,586 was my round 5 cumulative.
And I was 1086, so 500 points. That was quick maths.
There you go.
We, in 5 weeks of buys, you managed to put 500 points on me that quickly. And it's funny how your mind works when you're going well versus when you're not going well. And if only we'd podcasted at round 5, JB, we probably would have talked each other out of some of these trades, trading in Petrarca and stuff. And I'm looking at the rankings of the world.
Yeah, it is interesting because I remember just being so steadfast. Like Petrarca was, I think his break even is 138. And I was talking about, because I wasn't going to get him until like a last second. I was like, oh, if I actually trade this guy as well, like this expensive guy, I'll find the trade actually. It's probably easier to just read the trade out. And I wasn't going to get him. And then it just suddenly made all the sense in the world. So I went Stewart out after just trading Stewart in the week prior because he got that concussion.
Oh, yeah.
I went Stewart out, D'Ambrosio out, and Jeremy Sharp out. I got Martin, who I still think to this day, 575k. That's about value for what I got.
575 in round 5?
Yeah.
I got Martin.
Round 7.
Oh, round 7.
I did that trade.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
And Petrarca at 623 and just Garcia as the rookie. And so then Petrarca did, I have to click around a lot here. I'm sorry, I know I'm umming a lot, but I'm trying to go in between 12 different screens. So he is now 519k. So it was 100k cheaper. So that week he had Richmond and he had like a 138 break even. And I was like, I'm going to vice captain him. He's gonna be more expensive next week than he is this week. He's got Richmond. Everyone was belting Richmond. Like the last 5 inside midfielders against Richmond all put up like big 130 plus scores. And some of them weren't even that good, like the actual midfielder themselves. So Richmond for the first time in 10 years, and first time for the year that at that point, tagged. So Pickett tagged Petrarca. After the only reason I got him is because he was coming off of a tag game against Brisbane, and then Geelong tagged Petrarca, and then Carlton tried to, and then Petrarca went forward and kicked like 100 goals. And then West Coast and I felt like I traded into this outrageous situation. But if I did just wait that one more week, then Petrarca's got like a 180 break even, and he only turns up twice more from the year from that week. And I just would never have gotten him in at any point.
Yeah.
So one more week. It's the same with Tom Stewart. I just don't get him in that 1 week. I miss the concussion. I never get him. Tom Green traded into his 5, and then he never bounces back really. And I just probably never end up getting him in that case. And I just felt like trade after trade, I was getting these uber premium guys that were a bit more, expensive, and it just kept on hammering me all year.
And Sharp in the rounds, I don't know, he a lot of these cash cows became even better cash cows in that time as well. So it wasn't just trading out trading players in at their 600k plus price, but to do that, you traded out rookies that still made more money. And if you had gotten, I guess, cheaper premiums, you may have been able to hold on to those ones and continue to make money. So you kind of have
he made a quick 75k from that point, Sharp, over the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's tough. I think a lot of people traded Tom Berry like round 5 or 6, and he basically made no money. And then 2 weeks later, he made 70k more, and ended up selling him close to 300. Unfortunately.
Yeah, me I did that too.
Yeah.
I did all those things because I was like, I've got the trades. I've saved all these trades on starting this amazing genius team. I'm not going to do these trades, so I'll just stay aggressive and keep on trading these guys ahead of when other people are going to be able to trade them. They're going to have to keep them all year, the suckers. And then it turns out holding onto a player for more than 2 weeks and just giving him time to hit that spike game instead of being so impatient, most of the time benefits you. Not the other way around. Not being able to just fling them out willy-nilly. Like, my trade of the season, and that is said with pure sarcasm, I traded out Wilson at 165k.
Darcy Wilson.
Yeah, in round 4. So the story was Wilson was coming off of a 25 in a full game. Burgess, who was another option, just scored 72 that week. And then Clark, who was the other option for Geelong, just scored 70 that week. So I had those 2 guys who were my other 2 bad rookies who I was like, I do want to trade them, but they've just scored 70, so let's see what they can do with that. Instead, I traded Wilson off his 25. If that was any other week that 25 came in, I make 400 more K. It is like, it's a really bad move in hindsight, but that's what you start doing when you have like no good guys to trade out. I had no trade out targets. No one was doing bad enough for me to go, yeah, you're out of the team. So I start picking between guys who are doing just okay. And those guys can just burn you. I mean, in this case, like to the ground, but in other cases, they can still just hurt you so badly when everyone else holds them, and it ends up costing you a lot. And I mean, I traded in Sam Darcy, so at least it wasn't all bad. But he was my best option to get to Darcy. I didn't have any other issues with my team.
Yeah, I think one of the things I noticed, I mean, I should say in that round you got Petrarca. You spent the same amount of money as me, but you could have gotten Dale, Rankin, and Garcia instead.
Yeah,
and that puts you into the top 100 from the top 1,000 if you get those three. I'm just looking, and part of what I did, I guess, because I had a lot of bad players. So again, different situation than you. I had to go hard on the rookies because I went hard on a lot of the rookies earlier in the season, and this may have been luck, but typically better rookies play earlier in the season. And that's because they're the players that make impacts for their club. And if you're making an impact for your club, you're typically going to score pretty decent. So the better rookies debut at the start of the season. So because I was making all these changes at the beginning of the season to get my team right, I ended up with a lot of rookies that people, I guess, didn't have. So, not that people didn't have, because I don't think people had like Buku and stuff, but I just had kind of a lot of random rookies. But I went really hard on the ones like Darcy and Closey and Graham and Garcia's, stuff like that. But then from like round 7 onwards, I pretty much was making my money through mid prices. Like I was trading in, I traded in McKerchow again, Fisher at that low price. And
I think we all did a bit of that.
Yeah. I basically went 4 weeks between getting a rookie. And I think what happened in between round 7 and 11, there was a couple of dodgy rookies as well, or people that were just grasping at a guy because they needed someone that was playing because they were desperate for a downgrade option to make their next upgrades, to keep their upgrade cadence. And I think going hard on the good rookies early and getting rid of the crappier rookies just meant that I just had a lot more cash to play with through the middle parts of the season and a lot more options on which rookies to trade out. And it really let me keep the people like Darcy Wilson who were in really hot form because I had so many options. So I had Darcy Wilson as well as Sam Darcy for like really long periods of time, probably more than other people, because I just had other people to trade out because I had all these, I guess, hot rookies at the time. So I'd culled all my dead weight like really early on in the season. And that along with getting in the value premiums meant, I rocketed up the ranks from 30K to, 1400th in like a 6-week period, which is quite ridiculous. But then literally round 11, when I was at 1400th, was when I started to trade in the top. It's when I went for the rows and started trading in the top price players and just, I guess, kind of stalled my season. But
yeah, I think like if we stay consistent on our beliefs, which you were not forced into, but you were sort of shown the light early in the season because of your start, and then I sort of thought heavily in the preseason and then very quickly abandoned it. If we stay steady with that, then we both probably have top 2K seasons, more trades, more money. Like we might waste those in every other way, which is always probably the case, but at least we give ourselves a better fighting chance with what we had. So I think it's really interesting to get in a mindset preseason. You still have to be flexible, and it's still really hard to determine which player is, fool's gold and which player is actually going to bounce back. But I think at the end of the day, I put way too much concern on a player like losing money or going up in money. Like a premium who's 600K flat, and I'm like, all of a sudden my brain's like, I can't spend 75 extra K getting this guy. Like if he goes 140 for 5 weeks straight. And I was like, yeah, but you probably can, and it's probably worth waiting to find out if you're unsure on them. And it's the same with the rookie.
You did it with Oliver.
It's like,
Like you said, wait.
There you go. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was going to get him, and you talked me out of it.
And it's the same with the rookies on the other hand. If they haven't made any money, them having a week where they've got a break even of 60 and they're going to lose 4K it's just not worth like, oh my God, I can't hold that. What position do you think I am financially? $4,000. I can't just trade him next week if he scores 30 again and gets dropped. So for some reason, my brain just exaggerates these price movements so much. And price is only an issue when you do dumb, stupid trades that you feel forced into because of price, when it's not actually a big issue at that point. And then it becomes an issue because you do too many of those and other people are just like a week more patient on things. And it can just burn you so quickly. And it affects your ending team. It affects your mid part. It affects everything. So, yeah, I've learned a lot of lessons, a lot about the current crop of premiums in terms of paying up for players, which I just don't think would be necessary, outside of probably just Bontempelli and maybe Gorn again next year, who knows. But outside of that, and just being patient, not letting price make decisions for me, because it's not as paramount as I think it is. Like, even with a 150 break even, you lose like 25K, 30K.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that bad. If you're getting 6 weeks of that, that becomes bad. But when you ever having to lock yourself out of trading a guy for 6 weeks, and they don't even usually score that poorly all in a row. They usually throw another random spike in there, stall it for another 2 weeks, and you're fine. Like, I just exaggerate that stuff too much during the season, and it ruins my team very quickly.
Alrighty. Well, I think firstly, JB, I'm still gonna finish top 2K, so you're on your own there, buddy. Let's talk quickly about some of the podcast questions, if that's okay with you. And now I'm fully aware that I'm just like taking the host position out of your hands. I haven't podcasted together.
Not if I start talking over you, because then I can just wrestle it straight back.
It's true.
But I like you having it. I like when you've got control.
All right. So if we look at yesterday's podcast chat, sorry, I'm stalling time while I find it. Nath has asked.
You're a really good host, by the way. Can I just say that?
I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Is Philippou a viable F6? Not F7, F6.
I mean, he turned up this week. He was this week. Is he?
What does that mean?
He's a great F6 this week. So he's 266K. I've kind of missed the whole Philippou hype thing. So he's gone back-to-back tons.
Yeah.
But, like, this is what confuses me. He played 96 minutes on the weekend for 101.
Yep.
82 minutes the weekend before for 112.
It was great.
86 minutes the week prior for 18.
Yeah, no, it wasn't the week prior. He got dropped off. He got dropped for like 5 weeks, banished to the Shadow Realm.
Oh, sorry.
And he was playing forward then.
Right.
Now he's a midfielder.
So is he pure midfield now? Is that the aspect that I've missed? Because if he's forward at all, then he's not even a 35 average.
No. You have missed this. No. You mentioned it last week on the podcast. Don't worry, JB. I know you're listening a lot to that one. We had a whole segment on how great the
not listening at all.
Philippou pick was. No, so Philippou has been playing midfield. He came in last week at 63% CBAs. He had 68% CBAs this week. Windhager's injured, so he's getting, I guess, a bit of that role.
Right, gotcha.
So it's, I guess, entirely different. However, he did have some games with like 50% CBAs through the year and didn't score very well. So it doesn't mean
All right, I've got an answer.
It doesn't mean much. Yeah.
If you're okay with having a 70 flat averaging player at F6, then he's a fine F6. But the 70 flat is like plus minus 10 on, it could go either way there. And then there's also that small chance where he just loses his role completely again. And that is really, really bad. Would I get Philippou as an F6? Literally never. Only if I ever had the exact money for him and everyone below him was like out of the league. No, not out of the league. Was obviously a worse option because that price is just outrageously low. If you're forced into him because you're around this price range, you're probably not going to get a higher upside pick for your F6. But if I have 400k to spend, am I going all the way down to Philippou because I think he's a good F6? Never, ever, ever.
Who would you get at 400? Kerno?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I know he's a bit of a meme, but he had 11, 12 scoring shots this week. So, he's not that bad. Do I think he's got a clearer role? He's got a consistent role. I don't love the role. he's had 2 or 3 bad weeks now, but I think he's still a 90 average going forward. So that's better to me than what Philippou is.
Fun fact about that 18 that you mentioned in round 10, that was one of those games with 50% CBAs. So
that's really bad. That doesn't get much worse than that in terms of indictments. But no, I think Philippou's a good player. I think he's actually an exciting young prospect, but you cannot trust what you've seen in the last 2 weeks as the pattern that's going to be going forward. I think this is it's awesome that he's finding form, but he's as likely to score 45 in the roller as he is to score a ton. That is horrifically scary.
I think West Coast is a great matchup. Essendon's probably not as good. Honestly,
I think West Coast win that game. So
yes.
do St Kilda,
Marvel?
is because more so because I think they've got enough cattle and the new coach type of bump. But yeah.
I think with 6 rounds to go, it is pretty risky. I think again, if you're shopping in this price range for your F6, he's the best option. But if you have more money, I'm sure there's going to be a better option available. He is passing the eye test with flying colours, and I do think he's, the best option. Plus, under Kerno, I probably would feel a bit safer with Kerno. But he's probably the best option under that price. So he is really good if you need that for your F6. Would I use my last trade on him to bring him in as an F7? No. Would I use my last trade on him as F6? Well, I guess if that's the only thing you could afford, then I probably would. Is
he better than Mackay?
I mean, I'd prefer Mackay just because of the safety.
Yeah, same.
Philippou, I feel like he could totally ton up this week and then, as you said, score 50s for the rest of the season. And that's a very viable thing that may happen. Because all it takes is one really bad game, and then suddenly he loses his role. So,
he could be dropped in 2 weeks' time, and no one's stopping the presses for that.
No, not at all. I mean, maybe
that's very
Saints
scary.
Trying new things in the back half of the year, and he's probably getting a lot of midfield time. I mean, I'd love for them to just start playing Owens in the midfield full time and seeing what happens as well. That they'll shuffle things and try things. I think he's a great pick at his price, to be honest. But the question specifically was, is he a viable F6? And I mean, not unless you're incredibly desperate. Is probably where we both sit.
If I had Kerno as my worst forward right now, and enough trades, more than 4 trades at this point, and a rookie that I didn't like at F7, I think he's a great F7.
Yeah.
The perfect guy you want for F7. But F6 is just laced with, a lot more risk.
Better than Raul.
Arguably. Playing the same role and outscoring him. I don't understand what's happened to Raul, but what was the next question? I can't believe we're talking about Philippou.
Bell has asked, should I get Nick Martin, Tom Stewart, Chad Warner, or Trent Rivers versus anyone else under 515k and under on any line? And I know that is because he's trading out Raul. Sorry, Bell, I've given away your trades, but it's pretty obvious at this point.
No, and no one blames him. And I'm actually jealous that he's in the position to be able to do so.
He's
that is a good
6
question.
trades left, so it's fair enough.
So Nick Martin is the beneficiary of Heppel's. That injury has sort of helped Nick Martin a little bit, but I don't think he's the most attractive or lucrative option. Tom Stewart now in the midfield. Does that?
I think he might be out this week with concussion potentially. He might have delayed concussion or something. We'll have to wait and see.
He did get headbutted. He headbutted someone going for the spot or something.
They both hit each other's heads equally.
Well, no, as in it wasn't an actual headbutt, but a head got hit, and his was
head clash.
Yes, a head clash is probably the better word for it. But
No, not
but
that
if he's
clash.
fit still, playing in that midfield role, I don't hate, but Chad Warner has to be like I know he's taggable and actually probably the go-to tag guy there, but they've got Brisbane this week.
They got Mills back. They got Parker back. Heaney comes back next week.
Troops are returning. I still think he's the most taggable guy, arguably in the league at this point, and I think you really want to do it because he's so damaging. But I don't think that makes him like this awful 85 averaging guy. I think he's got a really high ceiling, I should say. And I think it's got to be a matter of time before like Goulden gets a run with over Chad Warner or something changes in the run home where Warner gets enough good scores and he's just really good and really fun to own. So I think I'd be chasing the upside there, especially if I'm trading out a Rowell. I would go probably Warner. But I think Tom Stewart playing a full midfield role might arguably be safer in terms of floor.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough question, especially that price range just rules out like Elliot Yeo from the conversation, who is also quite good. I think it's ruled out pretty much everyone. Oh man, I think I like
Yeo
Nick
would be
Martin.
my pick, by the way, if he fit. But
yeah, same. I think I'd go with Yeo. I think Nick Martin is probably the guy for me. He just gets so much of the ball that his floor is really high. I'm worried about Warner with all the players back, and he is so taggable, and he is. Oh man, this is a hard question.
I just think about like owning Nick Martin, and I just hate owning Nick Martin.
Did you hate it this week?
I'm like, What did he score? 99?
Nick Martin? Man, you had a big Slack catch-up, didn't you? You got 142.
That's not bad. No, I don't hate that at all, actually.
Yeah. Look, JB had a lot of water over the weekend.
Yeah, way too much spiked water. Yeah, okay. Well, that's pretty good. He scored 99 last week, which is why I'm thinking about it. But 99 last week, 75 the week prior, 1 ton in his prior 6 games to this week. Like, do you know what I mean? It's not super inspiring, but magnets have been moved a little bit. But do they just get moved back? I'm not in love with him being like, yeah, definitely mine. He's going 110 for the rest of the year. Like, he could go just flat 100. Is Chad Warner going to be worse than flat 100?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, I prefer Chad, but I get that he's also risky, and you're probably trading like a really frustrating Matt Rowell out for someone who will still occasionally frustrate you. But I don't know. I'll back Warner. That's my horse in the race.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Horse is an apt nickname for him as well.
All right, ZP asked how the Slack event was, but I think we covered that one. So thanks, ZP. You'll have to come down for the next one.
Scotty did say though.
Okay.
Would love a rundown on the day/night.
Oh dear, Scotty. What have you?
What's the best quick rundown you can give? No, I wouldn't even speak. I want you to give like the quickest rundown on just like boom, boom, boom. This is how it was.
All right. Some of the highlights from the top of my head, outside of meeting all the friendly new faces and having good quality conversations with everyone. I think we had some really good games of football though. Like the Fremantle game was really close. I think everyone cheering whenever Kerno got the ball or yelling when he missed, and there was a lot of those, was really exciting.
But it was a Bronx cheer, and I'm convinced he heard one of them. The first one that first mark, I'm convinced he heard from the G.
That was
genuinely think.
Super super loud. Then I ditched for a little bit. I had a Bucks party to go to, and then I came back from the Bucks, and then half of the people were gone, but I did come back. And then another 2 hours with everyone. I don't think I've summarized this very well.
No, you've summarized your night in a way.
Yeah, no, it was great. Wasn't that the question? How was your night? Oh no, it wasn't. It was just a rundown on the night. Whoops, I've missed. This is why I host and ask you the questions.
Yeah, so that was it.
I thought it said a rundown of my night, so I was like, all right, this is a very specific question. But okay.
Yeah, okay.
What more is there to say?
That was the highlights of Pistols Nights.
Well, just calling out individual conversations. They're private conversations. No one needs to know what happened with a bunch of random people at a table. Shout out to KC.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, everyone was really friendly. We got a lot of people there. Drinks were had. Pizza was eaten.
Yep.
We eventually got kicked downstairs because of someone's negligent behaviour, but that was all a misunderstanding, so it was all ironed out. A lot of people were...
Tab lasted 5 hours.
Probably... Sorry?
Bar tab lasted 5 hours.
Yeah, but I don't want to say that because I don't want to give incentive to, beat that record next year. Unless they're trying to...
No, beat it for longer.
The other way and just,
yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you guys can't make it last 7 hours.
Yeah. I'd like to see you guys drink less. That'd be the real challenge. And it was just an awesome event. I honestly would just say to anyone who does miss it or has missed it,
I don't drink and it's
just really, really fun to get to. But what did you just say?
I said I don't drink, and I didn't want to make it feeling like it was a drinking event. I don't think Cheezo or I drank anything the whole time, and it was great. So just because it's at a pub, there's no peer pressure to drink.
No, there wasn't. But we all did. When Pistol left, we kicked him a lot. So, and that was because he didn't drink. So I suppose that there is that sort of threat hanging over your head, I guess.
Well, it's you can't mix liquids with electronics, so I'm not allowed to drink.
True. We did oil you up though.
Thanks.
Oh, that was afterwards. Anyway. Yeah. Well, the next question. Gray says, "I just want to say a big thank you for throwing the Slackchup on the weekend." That's topical.
And he says it really is a happy place for many of us. Not all of us. He said many of us. So someone didn't have a good time.
This is a happy place for the drinkers.
that's Always Hung says
next
should
question.
Arrange a Slack event in each state. What are your thoughts about that?
It just wouldn't work. There's 10 of us in SA. There's 15 people in WA. And would all be jet lags going to WA. So I don't know. I don't know if it'd work. I wish it did. I'd love to go to every state doing it.
Yeah,
but Victoria's the mecca for us. That's just where 90% of our subs are. So it just makes sense. But I would be keen if there's enough interest. People from other states just need to be a bit louder.
Yeah, it's true.
Let us know that you're keen.
Anthony has asked, I have one trade left, and if Stewart is out, I don't have any money to get someone to replace him. So am I better off getting a 102k DPP player so I can swing on every line, which I can hopefully cover him with Fisher instead and loop Dowling and Kruger? Or obviously just trade Stewart, I guess, is the other option.
I mean, if Fisher's in this week, I would probably do the loop thing and hold Stewart for the 1 week. Doesn't really work if he's out again, though.
Yeah, for multiple times with the concussion, it's pretty risky. I think the issue.
No. If Fisher's out again, then you can't cover him. You can't cover the donut.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely loop Dowling.
He's covering him with Fisher.
You can loop Dowling anyway, because he plays the first game, and then you can figure it out after.
Fisher would have to swing to defense to score for Stewart this week. So if Fisher's out, there's no point.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's a good point you've raised, JB.
You don't want to eat a donut. Yeah.
102k rookie. Is that the best option?
It's that Richmond guy. Well, if Fisher's in this week, I'd rather keep Stewart for a week, have Dowling cover Fisher, and that's that. But if Stewart is out and Fisher is out, I would rather trade one of them to cover the donut. That there would be if you had that scenario.
Could he get Lawson Humphreys? It's 207k. Close, I don't know about you. I'm stuck with Garcia's in my team. It's 214k. I can't do anything with it. I mean, I technically could just sideways to Lawson's Humphreys for no reason. Is that a viable option?
What, Stewart to Humphrey?
Not Stuart Humphrey. Just instead of getting 102k,
A rookie.
just get a rookie.
Oh, for sure.
Down back.
Yeah, if you can. Like, I don't know how much Logan Evans is or what he even scored this week, but like I was trying to do that last week
Isn't he subbed?
with my defensive cover.
I think he was a sub, wasn't
Logan Evans.
he? No, maybe not. You can
No,
see
I
how
don't think
much, guys. We had a big weekend. Can't
I
blame
think
us.
Frank Evans was sub, wasn't he? I don't
There's
know.
two
It might have
Evans.
been.
Jesus.
We did an early sub, so who cares? There was Evans was on the field, Evans was off the field. We don't know. But that's what I was trying to do the week prior. Was trying to get in a cheap guy to cover my defense instead of trading the premium he was only out for a week. But instead, I just had to trade McGovern because I didn't have a choice. But if you do have the choice, I don't mind doing the loopy doopy thing.
Otherwise, you get in
Pretty
like a
suggestive.
McKercher or something.
Yeah. Who I, by the way, think is absolutely fine, especially if Fisher's out again.
Yeah.
Anyway, Kieran says, Gorn's still a trade this week. Also, best trading options from any line this week. I'm not answering that second one because I want to get out of here around the hour mark. So
It's been an hour.
thanks for the question.
Wow.
But is Gorn still a trade this week?
No. What? Like, explain to me the situation in which Gorn was held last week and now you're trading him this week.
No. So I say you had two bigger issues. Like you had Rankin last week and Took Miller.
I would have traded
So
the
Gorn
more
was held.
expensive person last week because you were going to get a donut either way and you would have got a Sherry or a Nank or something and then dealt with Rankin this week.
Yeah, but like Rankin's guaranteed 4, Took's like 4 to 8, depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
And Gorn's like 2 to 3.
Yeah, so instead you got two mid players. You got a Mason Wood or something because you couldn't afford anyone else and a donut. Or you could have got Sherry and a donut and then got Mason Wood this week. At least you got more points on the board. It made no sense to hold Gorn instead of the other people. I was trying to explain that on the podcast last week. A couple of people told me they hadn't heard that before, and then I realized I explained it really poorly. Maybe I just explained it better than JB. If you're in that situation, you trade out the most expensive player to get the most expensive replacement who scores more points for that week, and then do the other trade the next week. So you prioritize by the price, not based on the injury length when you have that many injuries.
Yeah, Kieran.
Yeah, Kieran. So now you have to hold Gorn because it's probably a week away.
Well, there's quotes saying that he might even play this week. So, yeah, I mean, I'd hold him at this point anyways. But I held him last week, but that's only because I definitely didn't have the trades to deal with him.
That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, well, there were some other questions in the general channel, but you know, I don't really.
They were in the
Those
wrong
guys
channel,
asked
but
questions in the
this
wrong
was
channel.
your fault.
No, we got the channels set out. If people don't know how to use channels now, then
You can talk about
someone
Rao.
asked why Rao sucks. Yeah, you can. I don't own Rao, so
You
you've
didn't
got
own
the
Rao.
insight
How
there.
did you avoid that?
I got Jack Steele, who's like
Better Rao.
somehow the slightly better Rao, but still not good.
Oh, man. The best part about owning Rao was he had 50% CBAs this week. And he has 0 outside
50?
game. Yeah. No, they gave Alex Davies, who then got a 3-week suspension, 50. They gave him half of his CBA, so he split his role with Davies this round, which was incredibly depressing because Davies had 12 tackles and 20 touches and was genuinely just better than Rao. Rao had, as expected, 0 marks and was pretty much entirely contested and 12 handballs. Just very frustrating because I think when most of us traded him in, it was right after where they announced that rule change that the tacklers are going to be rewarded, and we were like, well, this guy's averaging like 9 or 10 tackles a game and is already averaging 120 SuperCoach. Just feels like a pick that has even more upside, and it kind of went the other way, where all of his flaws were exposed, that he has no outside game and it wasn't a stable source of points. And now he is not good and lost his role. He might bounce back a little bit with Davies out, but honestly, if I had multiple trades, I'd look to trade him.
Yep. That is a pretty good summary that I completely agree with.
Who are you getting?
Like, I mean, I spoke about it earlier. I'll just get Warner.
Oh, but that's at
I like Warner.
512. He's
So,
460k.
Tell me what so the price cutoff is 460. Are we saying?
Let's say 465 because that's his price. It's not pretty.
Okay, put it. Yeah, right. Put it in between.
Okay, actually
Any
452.
line?
452 is his price. It's even worse.
Okay. Are we saying any line?
Yeah, any line.
Oh god. Wow. This is something.
It's 452, so you can't sneak Simpkin in.
I wouldn't do that anyway.
You may.
I would go Sam Berry.
That was not what I expected you to say.
I mean, I just wouldn't trade him. I think at this point, like his role is still like enough, especially with Davies, their prime midfielder, getting suspended for 3 weeks. But Sam Berry has actually replaced Matt Crouch in that midfield, and he's gone. What do you get? Like 80, 104, 89, 106 in the last 3 games. So that's something, but I still just would hold row. It's not good. It's not good at that price.
This is where we're up to in the podcast. Where we're like going through is Hopper an option? Ollie Wines.
Really
He's 454. Otherwise could have been Wines.
And Willem Drew's not been good this year.
Philippou, did you say?
No, I did not say that. Funny you asked.
Clayton Oliver.
Not get Philippou.
417k. Could you do Rao to Oliver? No, I'm kidding. Just hold Rao.
You really shouldn't. I mean, I didn't mind my shout. Barry's a up and coming player.
I just hold, and if you need to get, if you can
You
afford
have
the
to hold
530 range, I mean, get Rosie. He's just so much better than everyone else around that price. Well, actually, who's cheaper? Do you think, Sarong or Rosie?
Oh, I know the answer. It's Rosie.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
like 3 weeks ago.
That's what I mean by like everyone is just getting cheap, no matter what, no matter who you are, what your name is, what your profession is. Oh, your profession kind of has to be the same. But those first 2 things, you're all just getting cheap at some point. It's outrageous.
I can't believe, the 600k people, they were choosing after the bye between Rosie, who was injured, and Sarong, and Rosie's almost outscored him despite the injury, and there was a 200k price difference.
I did openly say that I thought Rosie would average 110 on the run home.
Yeah, we were very hot on him as a no-brainer pick, so don't you worry. We were echoing your thoughts because we listened to you.
I think that's because Pig asked me what he was going to average, and I said 110.
That's
and he was like, wow, I didn't even know Rosie was in the AFL, but now that I know he's going to average 110, I'm going to talk about him on the podcast.
I will answer one more question before we leave, because it's bugging me.
Yeah, I've already left mentally, but yeah, go for it.
It's bugging me. Scotty, again, another question. Friend of the pod, Scotty, says, would love the AFL to admit to a mistake for a change with round 0. I'm going to give a Sydney perspective. And this might be interesting or hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take, but it's an interesting take for the Melburnians. I don't know why I said Melbourneites, who used to live there. Dear Melburnians, on behalf of a Sydney sider who watches a lot of sport, Sydney doesn't watch sport and consume sport the same way that Melbourne consumes sport. For Sydney, it's like an event, it's like a party, it's like a fun thing to do. But it's not like your life, which it is in Melbourne. It's entirely different. So hyping up an event in Sydney for round 0 and saying you get this special event, you get this cool thing that no one else gets to do, is the exact way you attract people to a game in Sydney. Like, it's specifically catered for Sydney. And that's why the SCG had 40,000 people in the GWS game. I know they played Collingwood, but they still had a massive crowd for their stadium because they made it an event and people loved it. And it was like very successful in Sydney. Now, it may have pissed off the rest of Australia, but I think in terms of like the AFL admitting they made a mistake, like they absolutely nailed what they needed to nail to get Sydney people involved with AFL. So I don't think we'll be hearing much about the AFL saying they made a mistake, even if they pissed off quite a few people along the way in terms of a Sydney's perspective, I think it was a huge win for them.
All right, I got a couple of comments on it. Firstly, this was not an exclusive Sydney thing. There were games in multiple other states at that time, just not in Melbourne.
That's my Sydney perspective.
Secondly, just give them gather round. Just give them gather round.
No.
Thirdly,
it needs to be a cool thing.
That is cool. Gather round's cooler than whatever the hell that was, that opening round crap. Thirdly, giving GWS Collingwood is just cheating. I'm not listening to that attendance record. That's like 80% Collingwood fans who just travel, and especially because there's no games on. That's not Sydney people rocking up to the game. They don't have Sydney people rocking up to the game on a perfect summer night on a Saturday when the team's undefeated in round 24. Like, don't tell me that they're getting a good crowd because of that round 0 stuff. That is Collingwood. And then I had another point. Oh, Sydney have been really good this year. They are getting good crowds. They're getting good crowds anyway.
Yeah, but you don't know that.
Like, they're getting really good crowds all year.
Because they're doing well.
Though. Like, with Sydney.
Yeah, they're all bandwagon supporters.
Yeah, of course. No, of course they are. But, like, what do you do? Given round 0 has really changed nothing in the landscape of crowds for Sydney. Like, even that round, I think if you give Sydney and GWS those fixtures in round 1, you still get similar crowds. I just don't agree with it.
I know people.
I don't think it was like this massive stark failure that you can never ever do it again. But I don't agree that it worked in any way either. But yeah, that's me. That's an Adelaidean.
I know people that went as a very classic Sydney casual to round 0, and they were like, "Whoa, this is really fun!" And then they'll go, every second or third week to Swans games throughout the whole season and they weren't footy fans. They were just like, "This is a fun party thing to do," and now they do it. And I would call that, okay, well, the AFL got them. Like they did their job that they needed to do. I know anecdotal evidence isn't the best example, but it is a Sydney mindset, and I think they got what they needed to get out of it. I can't really talk on behalf of Brisbane, but and we'll see next year because Collingwood have already said they're not doing it again. So we'll get a different matchup that's not Collingwood, and we can test your theory.
That story about you knowing people that now go to football games, that felt fake. But it's probably what the AFL are gonna quote. They're probably gonna take this podcast, snip that exact response out.
I hope they do
and say, "See, we got them."
I hope they do. Contact me at pistol_DRSC on Twitter.
Right. Yeah.
Please don't contact me.
Well, if we're plugging stuff, we might as well just say, "Hey guys, thanks for listening. You can find us on Twitter at the usual places. We appreciate it. This is like no one has trades and there's like nothing crazy happening. So if you are actually listening to this, you are a real fan. We appreciate you. Thanks everyone who showed up to the Slackchup. Appreciate those donos, guys. You guys are the best as well. Shout out you lot.
You didn't know our socials anymore, do you?
I do. But is there any point shouting them out at this point? Do you think anyone's listening going, "Man, I really want to get in touch with these guys, but I can't possibly figure out how to contact them on the socials"?
I get a
couple. They must have really cryptic social, like pistol_DRSC. Who would have thought about that?
There's a couple that message me every week and they say, "Thanks so much for your podcast. I've just found you for the first time. You're my favorite podcaster, and keep up the good work the rest of the season."
And you think they wouldn't have guessed those socials if you hadn't have read?
No, they say, "I've only found you because of the end of the podcast," and I'm like, "Wow, that's really
that is a lie." Are these the same people that rock up to the first Swans game and started buy season tickets?
And then we caught up at the Swans round 0 game. It was great.
You just have this fake person that exists that you can just tell stories and give examples off of, but those things didn't actually ever happen, did they? I mean, shout out you if you're listening. You apparently do. So if you're listening, Sydney listener, only you, my socials are JB_DRSC. Get in contact with me and thank me for reading out my socials. Everyone else, you know where to find us. We'll catch you guys all next week.